The sky burned an impossible red, as if hell had clawed its way to earth. Pat Garrett, on his knees, hat flung far, stared at the figure before him, a silhouette that cast no shadow, even under the noonday sun. Garrett's revolver trembled in his hand, but it wasn't fear. It was worse. Recognition. If that image left a taste of gunpowder in your mouth, you're in the right place. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The West is vast, and legends spread faster than a bullet's crack. They said Garrett should already be dead, but every time they buried him in rumors, he crawled back from the desert with more scars and fewer words. That morning, the dust still slept when he rode into Dry Hollow, a ghost town home to more crows and souls. The standing buildings creaked like tired old men. The air smelled of rust and dried blood, always does. He dismounted slowly, eyeing the empty windows. Something here breathed too quietly, and Pat knew silence speaks louder than screams. In the stable, he found the first sign, an empty saddle, still warm, crushed straw, fresh hoof prints in the mud. Someone had been here. Not long ago. He wasn't after gold or glory. He hunted one name, Elijah Kane, bank robber, sheriff killer, and, according to saloon whispers, something more than man. A dry trail of death followed him, and shadows, well, shadows didn't follow him anymore. At the counter of the old bar, he found an upturned bottle, 3 scratches on the wood like claw marks. Then he heard it, a faint jingle, clear as day, the clink of spurs where no footsteps fell. He spun, hand on his holster. Nothing there, just a shadow of the door swinging with no one behind it. On the road out, an old man waited, perched on a crate, eyes covered by a thick blindfold, skin dry as parchment. After Elijah, the old man asked, sightless, "Then you'll need to cross the hills to High Shadow. But beware." Garrett's brow furrowed. Beware of what? The old man grinned, toothless. There, no one ages, no one dies, but no one casts a shadow. Garrett mounted without a word. He spurred his horse toward the blood-red horizon, riding straight into the devil's maw. The hunt had begun. The trail to High Shadow cut through forgotten valleys and hills that seemed to watch passers-by. The wind blew hot, whispering ancient names. Names no one dared speak aloud. Pat Garrett rode alone, but never felt it. He sensed eyes, felt the earth pulse beneath the hooves. At every turn, something waited, not rushed, but certain. The map he carried was a tattered, hasty scrawl from a fear-soaked tavern, but the name was there. High Shadow, isolated, as if the earth itself had spat it out. His goal was clear. Find Elijah Kane, end his flight, bring justice or vengeance where the law no longer reached. But deep down, Garrett knew this hunt wasn't ordinary. The trail he followed left little but legends. A bank robbed without a break-in, a sheriff dead without a mark, and in every tale, the same description: a tall man, dark eyes, and no shadow. On the third night, camped by a dry creek bed, Garrett stared at the stars. He didn't sleep, just watched, thought, recalled the first time he heard Elijah's name. A common outlaw, they said. Then it changed, killing without traces, walking shadowless under the sun, appearing in towns where no one had died in years. Garrett lit a cigarette and wondered how you hunt a man who might not be a man anymore. At dawn, he saw High Shadow's entrance. Old wooden gates, but no rust, no cobwebs, as if time itself had stalled. And it had. Horses tied outside what looked like a saloon, all still, no flies, no breath. Men on the porch, eyes alive but skin too taut, posture too rigid, smiles too wide. He stopped at the entrance. The wind died, the sun blazed overhead, but no shadows fell, not from the buildings, not from him. Garrett gripped his revolver's handle. Whatever was here, it wasn't natural, but he hadn't come this far to turn back. He rode slowly into town where time slept and shadows dared not wake. High Shadow streets were too clean. Dust didn't dare touch the ground. Windows stood open, but nothing moved. No curtains, no breath. Pat Garrett rode at a crawl, each creak of leather echoing like a shout in an open grave. Faces on the sidewalks watched. Men and women, still as store mannequins, all smiling. But their eyes told another story. Tired, empty, trapped inside their own flesh. The saloon was open. Its door swung without wind. Garrett stepped inside. The light within felt dead. Chairs neatly aligned, glasses spotless, a silent piano in the corner. Behind the counter, a man waited, tall, impeccable, not a speck of dust on his black clothes. Elijah Kane, the same face from the posters, the same steady gaze. But something was wrong. He hadn't aged a day. Garrett pushed his coat back, bearing his revolver. Tension danced thick and slow in the air. "Kane," he said, voice sharp as a blade on wood. End of the line. Kane didn't move, just smiled. "You're early, Garrett. The town hasn't fed today." The door shut behind him, untouched. The room grew darker, heavier. Kane stepped forward, his step silent, as if he didn't touch the floor. "High shadow isn't a refuge, Garrett. It's a pact. Here, death doesn't find us. Here, we pay with what we no longer need." He raised an arm, and there it was, no shadow. Not his, not Garrett's. Garrett glanced at the floor. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Shadow should have been there, but nothing was. "You want justice," Kane said, eyes gleaming cold. "But justice needs time, and time has no value here." He pointed to a door at the back. "Go through, Garrett. You'll see. You'll understand why no one leaves, not even the dead." Garrett's revolver was half raised, but doubt weighed heavier than the trigger. What lay beyond that door? And why had his shadow vanished the moment he entered the town? The enemy before him wasn't just a man. He was a mirror, an invitation. And maybe the real obstacle was resisting. Garrett crossed the back door like a man stepping onto sacred or profane ground. The sounds behind him died. No voices, no steps. Just silence and the creak of his gun belt. The corridor led to a vast hall, impossible for the small building. The walls pulsed like living flesh, and at the center, an altar of white bones. Above it, a black mirror. No frame, no reflection. Around him, the townsfolk, circling Garrett, smiling, shadowless, ageless, soulless. And then he saw, in the mirror, Elijah Kane. But not as he was in the saloon. Here, he was larger, older, or perhaps younger. His face warped like wax and flame. And in his eyes, the storm, rage, hunger. Here, Kane's voice echoed from all sides. "Eternity is currency, and your shadow is the price. Give it up. Be like us, free from death, free from time." Garrett removed his hat. "Let it fall. I'd rather die whole than live half." He drew his revolver. The hammer's click was swallowed by darkness. The faces around him moved, slowly, like pieces of a nightmare. The black mirror pulsed. And then Garrett fired. The shot roared like thunder. The bullet struck the mirror and cracked the world. The room shook. Shadows snapped back to the townsfolk like smoky whips. Smiles vanished. Screams began. The mirror shattered. Kane fell to his knees, black blood leaking from his eyes. Garrett advanced, aim steady. "This is for the time you stole." Another shot. Silence. But Kane didn't fall. He just laughed. A soundless laugh. "I'm only the beginning, Garrett. The talent's already in you." And he dissolved into smoke. The light returned. The townsfolk collapsed like cut marionettes. The altar crumbled to dust. Garrett stood, breathing hard. He looked at the ground. His shadow still gone. The sun dragged across the sky, as if it too had aged in that clash. Garrett rode away from high shadow, never looking back. The town faded into the horizon, as if it never existed, or as if it shouldn't be remembered. But he felt it, on his back, the weight of something unseen. His horse whinnied as they crossed the old dry creek. Water had returned, but it held no reflection. Garrett dismounted, looked at the ground. His body was there, His boots marked the wet mud, but still no shadow. Far off, a coyote howled. He pulled his hat low, hiding his eyes, mounted and rode on, quieter than ever, slower too, as if part of him had stayed in that broken altar, or as if another part had come along. They say he survived. They say the town swallowed him. Others swear they saw him later, in forgotten villages, appearing from nowhere, settling what the law couldn't touch, then vanishing like the wind. But in every story, no one saw his shadow. If you've listened this far, congratulations. Not everyone has the guts to face the West legends to the end. Now tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Drop a like, subscribe, and let me know, what's the next legend you want to see rise from the ashes? See you on the next ride, on the trail of another story. Somewhere the sun bleeds and the dust never sleeps.